Welcome to the Steering Change Podcast, navigating through the commercial transportation industry in Alberta and beyond, powered by the Alberta Motor Transport Association. Here's your host, Kelsey Hipkin.
Greeting friends, my name is Kelsey Hipkin and welcome to today's episode. Just short of a year ago today, as of recording, on March 27th, the Alberta Government announced development of a program for driver competency. The program lasts throughout a driver's career and helps ensure road safety. Among other things, the new Made in Alberta career pathway is being designed as an apprenticeship-style model to increase driver skills, improve safety, and enhance training for current and prospective Class 1 drivers in Alberta. To hear more about the learning pathway, how it came to be, and what has carriers talking, we are joined today by Catherine Williams, Director of Strategic Initiatives, Traffic Safety Services with Alberta's Transportation and Economic Corridors, or TEC. AMTA has been working closely with TEC throughout this process, no one more so than today's co-host, Erica Cormack, Manager of Education. Kat, Erica, welcome.
Thanks, Kelsey. It's great to be here.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Kat, can you take us back a year and chat about why TEC wanted to implement change in the pathway to becoming a Class 1 driver in Alberta?
Yeah, Kelsey, thanks for the question. And if I could take you back a little bit further, even. So, probably as many folks know, Alberta implemented mandatory entry level training, or MELT, for Class 1 drivers in March 2019. And we were the second province to do so, following Ontario. So, we've had MELT in place for 6 years as a province. And during that time, we've been hearing concerns from some of our stakeholders around the program, just because it's had some time to sort of settle and we're getting people's thoughts on it now. So cost is something that we hear a lot about. It's $10,000 to take the program now. It's about 6 to 8 weeks to get your Class 1 license. Insurance issues is another thing that comes up time and time again, because insurance can be quite high and very difficult to get for those new drivers that are fresh out of MELT. So we've heard some concerns there as well. And we've also heard that the training may be creating a barrier and is contributing to a commercial driver shortage in the province. So these are things that the department takes really seriously. So we wanted to take another look at the program now that it's had 6 years of maturing. And we did a couple things. So we created a commercial driver shortage committee, and AMTA is a very important member of that. So thanks for joining us on this journey, I should say. And we talked about some of the issues that are out there in the industry right now, and some of the challenges, such as financial viability. We know there's increasing costs, inflation, maintaining your vehicles are getting very costly. The training, of course, we know there's a high price tag there, and also retaining and attracting a new generation of drivers. There's a lot of folks are licensed as Class 1 drivers in the province. I think it's over 149,000, but only 31% of those folks are actually working in the Class 1 industry. So we're quite intrigued to know a little bit more about that. And also attraction. The Class 1 industry is not very attractive to women specifically. There's a very low portion of women actually having a Class 1 license. There's more of them actually that hold Class 3 currently. And also youth. We are not attracting that younger generation to the Class 1 industry, and we would like to, because there's a lot of exciting changes to technology, really cool things happening in the Class 1 industry, which AMTA knows all about, is at the forefront. So we'd love to attract a new generation of drivers and let them know this can be the profession for them. So in addition to setting up that committee, we also had a consultant do an objective evaluation of the program. So they went away and they talked to instructors and examiners and Class 1 drivers themselves. So the consultant came back and gave us a few recommendations for change. I think we can all agree that mandatory entry-level training is important for Class 1 drivers. It's dangerous to operate trucks, and we want our roads to be safe. But there's some enhancements that we could make to the program. So we've made some of those enhancements. We've taken those recommendations away. And since then, we've worked with driver training schools, industry associations, insurance reps, other impacted ministries, and we actually mapped out a competency framework that looks at the competencies required to be a Class 1 driver, and there's 72 of them. And that's before any specialization. And from there, we developed a curriculum framework. So that curriculum framework really takes a look at the competencies that are required to be that driver and sort of sets them out in a way that makes sense from an adult learning perspective in a phased approach and how you would learn these various skills. So in addition to this competency and curriculum framework, we also have an accountability framework to clarify licensing requirements and enhance oversight. So we're looking at how we license schools. We're looking at how we interact interact with them as a department and our own accountabilities as a department. So what is our accountability on our side to make sure our licensing requirements are really lending themselves to getting the right training providers in this environment? And we also will have new grants rolling out as well on April 1 with the new Class 1 learning pathway. So that's a little bit of a history of how we got here.
Awesome. Thank you. And you did touch on it a little bit, but can you elaborate a bit more on what the new pathway process will look like for prospective drivers?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, we've taken up MELT training as it is now, and we've broken it into more of a phased approach with more flexibility and adult learning customization. So we can really meet the learner where they're at when they join us on this Class 1 journey. So we start at the entry program. The entry program is a 40-hour program, and it will now be available online. Or you can also go to a driver training school for support if you don't like an online learning experience. But we're covering off a lot of those 40 hours that were traditionally provided at a driver training school in a classroom. Having it available online will means people can take it when it works for them. So if they're working a day job, they can come home and work on a few modules in the evening. Or if they aren't able to travel, they live in a remote community, they can start their learning from home. So there's some enhanced learning as well in there. We're talking a little bit more about what it's like to work in the industry, what it's like to be a Class 1 driver, because we've heard from industry that sometimes people are coming and taking their Class 1 license and they're not really sure what they're getting themselves into. They may not have the aptitude to be a great Class 1 driver. So they'll invest $10,000 in this training and find out, this really wasn't the profession for me. So the entry program will be priced at $250, and it gives folks an opportunity to start learning about those fundamentals of Class 1 driving, while also giving them an off ramp if it's not the right profession for them. They can continue on to find another job that suits them better. So for folks that really like what they see in the entry program, they would go to the core learning program next, and that would always be at a driver training school. So that is 60 hours of in-cab, in-yard, really focused, hands-on, behind-the-wheel learning. So folks can really get comfortable being in the cab and operating a Class 1 truck. And they would also do air brake training at this point as well. So that's about 8 additional hours if they don't already have a Q endorsement on their license. So entry plus core, including that air brake training, is 108 hours. After that, a learner, as they do now, would be able to take the knowledge and road test. But what is different is on the other side, they would get a Class 1 license that will have a provincial restriction. So that means that they can stay in the province operating a Class 1 vehicle. They can start working if they have some place that does local routes or they're working around the province. So they can start to get to work right now with this license. But if they want to get that provincial restriction removed, they don't have to hang on to this Class 1 license with a provincial restriction for any set period of time. They can go right onto the competence building program. And that also takes place at a driver training school. That's 17 to 25 hours of additional focused learning that's really tailored to where individuals need that skill development the most. So they can have a provincial restriction on their license if they're driving around Alberta, for years if that's something that they wish. But we also encourage folks to continue their learning and go on to that competency building program, whereas a driver training school will really look at where they need help and where they can assist them so that when that provincial restriction is removed after they complete that 17 to 25 additional hours, they're feeling really comfortable driving in a Class 1 vehicle.
Awesome. Thanks, Kat. And how will the learning pathway affect the goal of commercial driving being recognized as a trade?
Oh, great question, Kelsey. Thank you so much. Well, commercial truck driving right now is classified as semi-skilled across Canada. And we've done a lot of work with AMTA, of course, scoping out the competencies that are required to be a Class 1 driver. And we actually found 72 separate competencies, and that's before you get into specialization. So this is a difficult job. It requires a lot of skill. And we really think it's time for this profession to be recognized, which is why we really support a trade designation for Class 1 drivers. And of course, AMTA, you guys have really spearheaded this work and worked with industry. You've developed a proposal. It is advancing through advanced education side of the house right now. And we're really excited to see this work progress and really support that Class 1 learning pathway with more training opportunities to come in the future for our drivers. And even once we have this trade designation in place, The next stop is getting this profession Red Seal certified. So that requires 4 other jurisdictions in Canada to designate Class 1 drivers as a trade and join us in advancing this initiative. And I can say, our Minister Dreeshen has really been leading the charge on this and has been regularly advocating to his colleagues across Canada to join Alberta in this really important work. And he's been a great ally to this movement. So we're really excited, and we really see this as an integral part of the Class 1 learning pathway.
Awesome. And that's wonderful to hear. I know that our members will be particularly stoked to hear that is potentially on the table.
Yeah, us too.
Awesome. Thank you, Kat, so much. Before we deep dive even further into the pathway itself, Erica, can you tell me a bit about this journey with tech and the importance of our relationship with government? And by our, I mean AMTA.
Thanks, Kelsey. Yeah, it's been so informative, and it's been great to work with tech on this project. I think that AMTA is able to bring that perspective of industry. We're always talking to them. We're always having those interactions, whether it's in courses in our classroom or out in the field when we're engaging with them, or even getting together with them at events like regional meetings. And we hear what their needs are and we hear what their concerns are. And this close relationship throughout this project that we've had with tech has really helped us to be able to talk about what the concerns are, or what we might want to anticipate in terms of building a new program. And we're hoping that when industry starts to experience that program, they're going to be able to see their imprint on what has been developed.
Awesome. And with that, Kat, we're going to put you in the hot seat, and Erica's going to ask you a few more questions.
Well,
Sounds
I
good.
am. One of the things that I'm so excited about is that flexibility that's been added to the program. So you alluded to it a little bit earlier when you talked about being able to take the entry part as an online course, or to get it, in the classroom, being instructor led. Adults really like those options in terms of their learning. Can you just give a little more detail about how drivers or potential drivers are going to be able to access the entire pathway?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Erica. So yeah, as we just talked about, we do have that new online entry level module that will be available April 1st, and we will have a new Class 1 learning pathway landing page that will have a link to that content, so you can sign right in. We have a learning management system that will be available there, and it will actually track a learner. It will not only provide the entry level training, but it will actually track a learner as they go through all their phases of training. So right now, when a learner finishes a course at a driver training school, they get a course completion certificate. Right now, we are actually having an automated system where the learning management system will talk directly to Moves, which is the system that houses all of the driver information in Alberta, and will actually update the driver's profile right there. So we're really looking at automating things, making things easier for folks. So flexible where you take the entry program, making it a little bit easier and doing some red tape reduction. When you go to a registry, they'll just give you your license. You won't need to have any paper copies of anything. And we're also looking at more of a competency-based approach to learning rather than a set number of hours. So I think MELT is a great initiative. I think it's wonderful it was rolled out in the province, and I think it's really making a difference. But I think that now that we've had some time to reflect on the program, we really want to take it to the next level, which is focusing on where the learners need their most assistance and really focusing on that competency development rather than a set number of hours. So we can really get to that skill development, skill mastery for those Class 1 drivers. So again, having it online or at a school, if you want that extra bit of help or you don't have a computer at home, we want to give that flexibility, and also really focusing on that competency development and really meeting a learner where they're at in their learning cycle.
That's really exciting, Kat, because I think that this will encourage people who maybe feel they have some experience in the field or a natural aptitude toward it, and they can get their basic skill set down. And then when they move into the competency piece, they're not going to have to spend hours and hours on things they've already demonstrated that they're very skilled at. They'll just be able to work on those gaps. And I think that will just encourage them to want to keep going, but that will also then develop them into better drivers because they get the extra time where they really need it. I think it's a great model. I'm excited to see it start rolling out in the province. So we're going to switch a little bit from the model itself to talking about the fact that there is that provincial restriction piece. So can you talk a little bit more about how the new pathway is going to impact those carriers who go across borders? And are there going to be different timelines for people in that pathway compared to people staying in the provincial pathway?
Yeah, Erica, great question. So, folks that will be traveling across borders, whether that's interprovincial or whether that's down into the states, they will need to do that competency development. So, that's really taking that time to really finesse and take another look at the driver's skills and really work on them before they're going too far from home and going into the states. And of course, getting in an accident in the states can be quite different from Canada because there can be really big settlements and payouts there. So hoping to address some of the insurance concerns as well by keeping folks a little bit closer to home when they're beginning their driving career. So if they're going across the border, they will have to do that competency development, and they can choose to go to that competency development phase right away. So as soon as you take your class one knowledge and road test and you get that restricted license, you can go right back and just start beginning your competency development so you can start driving across the borders. But if you are working in Edmonton or you're just staying in the province, you can have that restricted license as long as you wish. Although we definitely encourage folks to keep learning. We call it the learning pathway because we really want to bake in that continuous improvement and pride that we see in the class one industry. We really want learners to feel engaged in their careers and feel that there's always new training to take. That's kind of an exciting piece for anyone's career, is feeling like there's always more to learn. And there certainly is that available in the class one driving industry, is what I've come to learn over the last 2 years.
That's awesome. Thanks, Kat. So, what are we talking about now in terms of transition? So, we have this new program, the new pathway, coming in April 1st, but we already know we've had MELT for the last several years, and very likely there are some drivers still engaged in their MELT training. So, what is this transition timeline going to look like over the next few months?
Oh, thanks, Erica. Great question. So we wanted to make this a minimized disruption. Of course, it's a big change for driver training schools and for drivers in the province, but we really wanted to try and roll this out as seamlessly as we could, knowing there's going to be a few bumps along the way. So for anyone that's taking MELT right now or begins MELT training before March 31st, they can complete that training, and we'll give them until October 1st to finish it up. We know everyone will take their different periods of time to complete MELT. Life happens. Sometimes you have to take a pause on your training. So we want to give folks October 1st to finish it up. And then after that, MELT will no longer be taught at the driver training schools in Alberta. It will be a change to the Class 1 learning pathway. But for those folks that are beginning their Class 1 training on or after April 1, they will be under the Class 1 learning pathway. And that's the path they'll be taking forward to get their Class 1 license. So we've been talking to the driver training schools. We've been talking with industry associations. We've been out and about, and we think this is a good approach. And we're hoping that this will give the flexibility folks need to finish up their training or start an exciting new journey with us in the Class 1 learning pathway.
Oh, I'm excited to see what happens on April 1st and see how many people are just waiting to take that entry level training for sure. And so to support learners who are going down this pathway, I know that you are rolling out the grant program, the Back to Work grants. So can you tell me how those are being rolled out to help support learners who are going to go down the new Class 1 driver pathway?
Yeah, thanks, Erica. We're also really excited about our new grants that are coming out as well. As you said, the Driving Back to Work grant was what we previously provided to support Class One learners to get their license, and it's a great program. We For that program we actually funded the training providers, so we sent funding to the training schools, and we funded a learner going through the training. So we've taken a look at the Driving Back to Work program, and seemed to be a missing link with employment. And so we talked a little bit about that earlier. Folks were coming out again with their Class 1 license, and it was difficult for them to be employed. So our second round of grants that we're doing now with the Class 1 learning pathway, we're offering two streams. So the first stream will be an employer grant, and that will be modeled after the Canada Alberta Job Grant. If anyone's familiar with that, it'll have a really
Yeah.
similar feel to it. Garrick, I'm sure you're very familiar with that one.
That's excellent. And so just because I know we're getting ready to wind down our episode here, but if an employer was interested in finding out more information about the grant, where do they need to go?
We're going to have a new Class 1 learning pathway landing site that will be available on April 1. So we'll have information about the phases you go through, the grants that are available to folks, the learning management system link. So keep your eyes peeled for April 1. We're going to have an exciting new website coming and with all the information that we just talked about today laid out in one space for you.
That's great. So just, I know you had mentioned it earlier about the landing page for people wanting to take the training. So if you're interested in the training, either as someone who wants to become a driver or someone who's an employer and is looking to support people becoming drivers, it's just a one-stop shop. Everybody can go find the information they're looking for.
Yep. Yeah, and I'll
That's,
even just say one more thing, Erica, if I
yeah.
can. We worked with AMTA on some really cool day in the life videos, and those are going to be available on our landing page as well. So folks that are curious about the Class 1 profession can hear from seasoned drivers what it's like to actually work in the industry. So we have some cool videos as well, and thanks to the AMTA for partnering with us on that.
Oh, it was a great project, and thanks for bringing those up. And I have to say that if any of our listeners out there are interested themselves in the Class 1 program, or they know somebody that is and want to just give them some encouragement, but also show them the richness of the profession, I agree. Those videos tell some great stories. I definitely encourage people to watch them. Thanks, Kat. Kelsey, back to you.
I just want to thank you both for your time and your knowledge today. What do you say we do this again in 6 months or so, and then we can catch up on the progress the pathway is making? Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, it's a date.
Fantastic.
I agree. Would love to do that.
Before we close, let's wrap with some closing comments, though. Kat, is there anything you'd like to add that we might have missed or that you just want to promote as far as the program goes?
Yeah, what, I just want to say, I worked before I came to this job. I worked at Justice and Solicitor General for 17 years because I love safe communities. And working on this initiative has really demonstrated to me how safe roads is a huge part of safe communities. And working with driver training schools, carriers, working with associations like the AMTA, seeing so much passion for safety, so much pride in the profession has been just a tremendous experience. And it's really exciting to see how many people are dedicated to making our roads safe and making sure we can all get home to our loved ones at night. So big shout out to everyone in the industry. It's just been wonderful working with everybody.
Absolutely, thank you. That part is crucial, and we know that so many of our drivers take pride in that fact. Erica
Yes.
Cormack, anything that you would like to add?
I just want to say that for anybody that's considering this pathway, I think what's really exciting is it's a really learner-centered approach. The ability to take the training in a format that suits you best, the competency-based development where you're going to focus on those skill areas where you feel less confident. I just think that it's a really different approach to driver training, and it's going to help us develop even more professional drivers across the province, and that benefits all of us. I think it's an exciting time.
Awesome answers, both of you. And just again, so many thanks for being here today and helping us out with that, Kat, as well. Erica, thank you. We are just going to quickly move on to some AMTA news as we close up here. AMTA is holding our second Safety Summit of the year in Lethbridge on May 8th. You can find details on amta.ca. As well, our 75th Professional Truck Driving Championship takes place May 31st in Edmonton. Registration is now open for both competitors and volunteers. Please check out amta.ca for details or email us at events@amta.ca. Registration for both closes on May 23rd. And finally, if you haven't heard of it yet and have a driver who's gone above and beyond, be sure to nominate them for AMTA's new initiative, Angels of the Highway. Want to know more? Email us at membership@amta.ca. Speaking of membership at amta.ca, if you have any questions on our new member value launch that dropped April 1st, that is the email for you. Do you have any questions or comments about today's episode or topics we've covered before? Reach out on our Instagram at AMTA_CA or LinkedIn and Facebook at Alberta Motor Transport Association. Stay safe and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of AMTA's Steering Change Podcast. The views expressed by guests of the Steering Change Podcast are their own and may not reflect the views of AMTA, its hosts, or sponsors. Did you have a question that you would like answered on an upcoming episode of the Steering Change Podcast? We want to hear from you. To submit a question to the Steering Change mailbag, hit up our DMs on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram with the hashtag Steering Change, and your question will be answered either live on the podcast or by one of our SMEs here at AMTA. We ask that you share this episode with those in your network that could benefit from what we discussed today, and make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform so you can be notified when future episodes are released. You can learn more about us and our mission by visiting www.amta.ca. Now get out there and have a safe day.